Hi, I'm gonna start like right on time because this next session isn't very long and it sounds like it's got really great material in it, so I think we want to get to it. A couple of housekeeping things. If anybody wants closed captioning or interpretation in other languages, scan this QR code. And you will have that, and that'll be true for every session today. So Interprify apparently does this really well. That's a second look at the QR code in case you didn't get it the first time. We would like to thank all of our sponsors who have actually put up money so we could all get together and do this, which is great. So thank you, sponsors. And thank you to our partners. And I would like to introduce our first speaker. I guess he's our one of the first speakers for this whole show. And I think, I'm really, really glad that I got to be in this room because I think there's nothing going on at this show or actually anywhere that's more important than this question: how do we connect? And I think that we all know that we are really in the connection business, right? Because the whole reason we have events is for humans in this world where we all remote connect or don't even connect with other humans because we're talking to AI, right? In this very distractible, very disconnected world, how do we connect? And if we're not making that happen at our events, right? As the saying goes, this meeting could have been an email. Also, I'm a columnist for Inc. magazine, and I write a lot about brain science and health and productivity and what makes people happy. And the research tells us that people who have connections, a lot of connections, actually live longer. So there is no more important work than connecting people. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this room all day. So please come back here, stay here. This is going to be really interesting. And if I can just, okay. So we're going to start with scrolling, which you may know Meta and YouTube just had to pay what for them was a small amount of money because a jury decided that, yes, their designs are addictive. How do we get people to stop scrolling and start connecting? Our next speaker is going to tell us about that. Please welcome Riz Vazir, founder of Scroll by Choice, which is dedicated to helping both kids and adults reclaim control over their screen time, which most of us have lost control of. Scroll by Choice partners with leading organizations such as Boston Children's Digital Wellness Lab to bring this mission to life. Riz served as Director of Business Strategy at Microsoft and led employee benefits programs for Fortune 50 clients at AON. As a certified change management professional with an MBA from Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, Riz is exactly the expert who can show us not just why unmanaged screen time matters, but how to start addressing it. Please welcome Riz. There you go.
15 years ago, director Christopher Nolan set out to answer an interesting question. Could you enter into someone else's dream and plant an idea so deep into their subconscious that when they woke up, they thought the idea was already there? No presentations, no memos, an idea just sitting there naturally. The movie I'm talking about is Inception, and I'd argue it's one of the best movies ever made about what you as event organizers are trying to do. Now, if it's been a while since you watched this movie, or maybe you have not watched this movie, the Cliff Notes version of this movie is that in order to plant an idea into someone else's subconscious, Leo DiCaprio and his team designed these intricate dream worlds. And as their intended target walks through these dream worlds, they come upon this idea that's planted there, and they inherit it as if it's their own. Since the time people have gathered, events have only been about planting ideas. Ideas that go on to then shape other ideas, shape relationships, evoke emotion. So what is it that your clients are asking you to go plant into attendee minds? They want purchase intent. They want brand loyalty. They want people to have a reason to care, something that they can remember long after the event is already over. And so what do your websites start to claim? Curation, the right room, the right speaker, the right attendees. An immersive experience with the lights and the sounds and the amazing displays and the experiences that will just draw you in. And all of this is for what? For transformation. You want the attendees to be fundamentally different than when they walked in. That is what your websites start to promise. And all of that is compelling, and all of that makes sense, and all of that should work. But there is an underlying assumption in all of this, which is that attention is available to you on demand. That if you put the right room, that people will give you the focus. That if they're sitting in the room physically listening to your sound bath, that they're even mentally there with you. But something has changed with human attention and focus over the last several years. In fact, you in this room right now have already made mental trips between now and what happened a few minutes ago and what will happen a few minutes from now. That's just human nature. Let's look at some numbers. 8 out of 10 people check their phones within the first 5 minutes of waking up. I like to say that the other 2 people are just lying. And what's happening to these 8 people? Their bodies and their minds are getting pumped with cortisol, a stress hormone. That's setting up these people to be jittery and to be anxious for the rest of their day. They do not have focus to give you. That is the reality of the attendees walking in. And if you are going to try and grab their attention, if you're going to distract them from making LinkedIn connections instead of actual conversations, you're going to need a fundamentally different strategy. And the good news is that your attendees are actually happy to have you do that. Whether it's the media or whether it's how we start to feel after a long doom scrolling sesh, you know, the one that was supposed to last only 4 minutes but lasted 25? People are starting to describe their relationships with technology as if it's a bad habit that they can't shake. What's the most common word do you think that people describe when they talk about their relationships with Instagram or TikTok or email? Addiction. That is the vocabulary with which your attendees are explaining their experiences, and they do not like it. They're doing it, they know it's happening, but they're not happy about it. And they are looking for a way out. This is Deloitte's data. 56% of Gen Z and millennials this year have said that they are struggling to maintain their screen time levels at a place with which they're comfortable with. They're doing it, they're not happy about it. 40% are worried about the impact this has on their physical health and mental health. These are the same people sitting in your rooms, clutching onto those phones. They're doing it, they're not happy about it. This is playing out in popular media and our culture too. Analog is having a moment, y'all might have noticed. Cities and nonprofits are having trouble finding payphones because people are installing them in their homes now. It's cool to be nostalgic. In fact, 12 million Instagram posts just in 2025 on the topic of nostalgia. There's kids walking around these days that think that Stranger Things is a documentary of like how people grew up in the 80s. They didn't. That's not how I grew up in the 80s. But that's how kids believe. Searches for 90s movies have just exploded on Google. Everyone's trying to be retro. And you know, some of that is a fad, sure. And the fads come and go, you've seen them. But underneath this, there is a genuine longing for human connection, something that technology just hasn't been able to satisfy yet. Doesn't matter what the next AI bot seller tells you. And so that's the opportunity that we're going to talk about today. Before we go and talk about a framework that you can use and deploy at your events, I want to be very clear about one thing, which is I am not suggesting that you abandon technology at your events. You know, a true analog event might be cool. It might be a nice one-off thing that you pull off. But in the real world, you're not going to be printing reams and reams of paper that just finds its way into the landfill. You're not going to roll back time to 1998. It should not be the goal with which we're operating. Instead, I want to make the case that you start to design your events with digital wellness in mind. Now, some of you may have been familiar with this term, others may not. Digital wellness is not a term that my company coined. It's a term that's been around since 2012, shortly, by the way, after Instagram was launched. It is the intentional use of technology that enables individuals and communities to achieve their potential. This is not an anti-tech statement. This is not a ban phones statement. This is not a restrict the use of AI statement. This is a pro-human statement. This is you getting into the driver's seat of when you want to use technology, not the other way around. Not when an algo or an algorithm decides that you need to look at me. That is what I want to motivate you to think about as we talk about our content today. Digital wellness as the North Star. And you guys have all, by the way, been doing physical wellness, mental wellness at your events already. There's stretch zones, there's nap pods, there's pet stations. You've thought about this. I want you to start thinking about attention as just another thing that you're addressing in your spaces, allowing attendees to truly replenish attention and then redirect that focus to what matters in that moment. Here's how we're going to start thinking about digital wellness in live events. Before I walk you through the framework, you have to have one thing clear. You are not going to outstimulate the smartphone. On a good day, your AV budget is what, $50,000? TikTok spends $25 billion on their algorithm. You're not going to outspend them. You're not going to outstimulate them. What you have to do is to lean into the power that you have, which is put something into the room that the algorithm simply cannot replicate. And that's what we're going to talk about. 3 things. They work together as a system: cohort, concierge, and closed loop. I'm going to talk you through each one in a little bit of detail so you get a taste of what I'm talking about. Researchers at the University of Chicago went out to college students and said, hey, if you need to get off of TikTok or Instagram, how much do I got to pay you? A college student says, on average, $50. Give me $50 and I'll gladly get off of social media for a month. It's a college student. $50 goes a long way. Then they asked these same kids to say, what if all your friends went off of social media at the same time? A group effort. How much would we have to pay you then? And something shifted where the kids said, you don't got to pay me. I will pay you to make that happen. They were willing to pay the researchers their own limited money to get all of their friends off of social media at the same time. Think about what that's telling you in the data. It's telling you that people are looking down at their phones, not because they love them so much, because no one wants to be the only person looking up. It's awkward. Ever sat in an airport lounge and just look around? People are down here, just doing important things, email. Not really. They're just awkward in that moment. They don't want to look up. No one wants to be the first person or the only person looking up. That plays out, by the way, in your rooms all day long. 400 people in a room, everyone wanting presence, everyone wanting to actually talk to the person next to each other, but no one's brave enough to be the first person to do it. So in our world, that is a coordination problem. That's not an addiction problem. That's a coordination problem, and cohorts can solve coordination beautifully. Here's how it might play out in the real world. You set out your registration page and put a checkbox that says, Are you willing to opt into this cool new digital wellness track? And someone selects it. By selecting it, they're saying, yep, I actually care for presence. I actually kind of want to put my phone down. And so by selecting it, I'm assuming that other people around me will have also put their phones down while we're at the event. That's half the work done for you. They've already raised their hand. They've already said, I'm interested in doing so. Now, you take your AI tools, and you take this group of people, and you start creating small groups of cohorts, 8 to 10 people, nothing larger. People can't extend beyond 8 to 10 people in an authentic way, even if you have 2,000 followers on LinkedIn. 8 to 10 people. Use your AI tools. They'll find patterns. They'll be like, oh, Riz needs to sit next to Julie here because that's just the right person that they need to sit with. And now when Riz shows up at this event, I'm not a nobody. I'm not just a name badge. I'm expected. 7 other people are expecting me to be there. I am seen. I am heard. I'm just not a number. I'm not a badge. And now you have tapped into something that the algorithm simply cannot. You've tapped into my innate biology, my need to be seen. And now when I show up, you've seeded me with a question maybe, something that I can engage with the audience on if I'm awkward about starting a conversation. You have made it easier for me to keep my phone in my pocket and not look down. And it didn't cost you a whole lot more to put that together, a checkbox and an AI matching program. You didn't have color-coded lanyards. You didn't need to do that. You didn't need to buy a new app to make that happen. You just needed to think about this earlier on. And by the way, what did this do for you? This made it now easier for you to plant the idea that your client paid you anyways, because people are giving you attention. Here's another thing that makes smartphones so hard to resist. It's not just the algorithm. This is data from University of Irvine, where they said they put people into socially awkward situations. You know, the same kind of socially awkward situation that happens when you walk out of the session and you're like, where do I go? Who do I talk to? I'm just going to look down. Socially awkward situations. And they found that smartphones actually act as an electric security blanket. People are like, well, if I can escape into this phone, I don't feel so stressed anymore. The phone doesn't judge me for standing alone. I can just be here by myself. That awkwardness is driving your attendees into Instagram, into their email, into their TikTok. And you have an opportunity to diffuse that awkwardness pretty easily. Think about it again. You have the data about who's there, who's checked in, what their LinkedIn profiles are. Have a staffer find some high-value matches. Some people that should meet each other, but they probably won't because that's just how big events are. And then in those dull moments, the coffees or the lunches or the hallway moments, have that staffer go up and be like, hey, you should talk to Riz. Riz is the guy who talks about screen time, right? You should go talk to him. Maybe they go talk to them, maybe they don't. But then your staffer sends an email 24 hours later saying, hey, 2 of you, y'all should talk. Now you have generated a human connection that otherwise would not have existed, by the way, with no additional cost, just with an intention to generate digital wellness amongst your attendees. That connection, trackable. You can log it. You can figure out what happened with that connection. That brings me to the third one, which is closed loop. A closed loop at a digital wellness event is not just how many people showed up to this event, or what was the NPS? Were they happy? Well, it's 4.4. Was 4.4 good? Well, it's better than 4.3, but not as good as 4.6. Instead of doing that, you're tracking connections. You're tracking how many people did your concierge put in touch? And how many people stayed in touch 30 days after? Your cohort gets to decide, what are we going to talk about after we leave from here? And maybe from the 8 people, only 2 people continue the conversation. But now you get an opportunity to go back to your client with a report that you've never been able to go back to them with, saying, these many connections were made, these many connections persisted, and these many business outcomes were generated. This is about as close as you're going to get to describing that an idea was planted without the need for extra technology, without the need for another app. without the need to ban phones. Again, remember, digital wellness at an event is not about restrictions. It's not about creating these cute signs. It's about giving people a reason to opt into human connection. Your cohort is going to solve the coordination problem. Remember, everyone wants to get out, but no one wants to be first. Your cohort does that. You've already self-selected into it. For the people that didn't self-select, your concierge makes the connections. These are high-value connections. It solves the unstructured moment problem. And you get a chance to measure everything. All of that is measurable. All of that is trackable because your client will want measures and numbers. And so when you walked into this room here, you didn't know that you were going to be part of a cohort. I'm going to encourage you to be part of a cohort right here. Repeated controlled trials around digital wellness have shown that when your phone drains itself out of color, becomes black and white, people spend 20 to 40 minutes less every day. Imagine, I'm about to give this group 20 to 40 minutes extra every day. So if you are brave, if you're the first person that wants to do this, you might think, I'm not going to go home and do this. I'm not going to do this in front of everybody else. But I'm going to encourage you to be brave. Pull out your phone, turn them black and white. That is not going to look good, by the way. It's going to look ugly, and that's the point. For some of you, you will switch back in 4 seconds. Others might be polite and just wait until you leave the door, because you're like, oh, Riz asked me to do it. For some of you, though, it'll last the weekend. And that'll make you a cohort of people that care about digital wellness. So I'm going to close where we started, which is with Inception. I'm going to encourage you to go build those cohorts, deploy those concierges, and measure it with a closed loop. And if it all feels so big and so daunting, again, a line from the movie, which is, don't be afraid to dream a little big, darling. Thank you. I'll take any questions I have in a minute that I have.
Hello, thank you. Mine isn't a question, but actually I did just learn about putting the phone to grayscale last week after listening to a podcast. I will admit I lasted a day, and it is very effective. It's super boring, I can tell you that. The only thing I didn't like about it is that I wish you could do it for certain apps and not for others. I'm just so used to being alerted by the colors in messaging. But I would love to keep it that way for Instagram, yeah. So, but thank you. Great information.
Terrific. No, it's so cool. And you think that's not a technical problem. That's a thing that can be solved. Our phone designers have intentionally designed not to make that happen, because then who would go into Instagram? All right. If you do have questions that you're not willing to ask in a group, I'm available after this conversation to have those questions answered. They could be about your kids, because everyone comes up to me and say, well, about my kid? They have a question. Yes, you have a hand raised over there. Should I take that?
Also, as event planners, we know that sending post-event surveys 30 days after an event gets you a lot lower for survey responses.
Yes.
Are there tactics or ways that you track who's staying in contact?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I glossed over it a little bit, which is, if you send a survey question 30 days later, they've forgotten about the event 30 days later. I don't know what I ate for lunch 2 days ago. But if you say, remember Riz, you met him at that event where I told you he's the guy who talks about screen time? What did you guys do after that event? Now you're planting a connection that you had created in that event versus a generic, what did you think of that event? The thing you're following up is not just on a general experience. What you're following up on is how deep did that idea get planted into the attendee's mind. So you're tracking something different. You're not just tracking survey results. You're tracking whether the connection was made and how long did that connection persist.
Okay, so you're sending like a separate follow-up email on an individual basis.
Correct. On the people that you made those connections with or on those cohorts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think maybe time for one more question. Okay, well, thank you so much. This was really great. It's a great way to start off our conversation about connection. And as he said, Riz will also be here for more private conversations. The session coming up at 9:40 is going to be a ton of fun, I can tell you right now. So hope that you stick around.